This is our 23rd webinar in our talk series. And a little bit about Ritambara. Ritambara is a wellness company that looks at wellness in a holistic way, not just the body, but the mind as well, and all through the practice of knowledge and wisdom that comes from our ancient Indian scriptures and heritage. Our topics will delve into self-discovery, personal transformation, health, harmony, holistic well-being, as well as the arts, which help us connect with our higher selves. All our earlier talks are uploaded on YouTube. Please feel free to go across, type in Ritambara Wellness, and you will get the list of all the recordings that we've done so far. Ritambara is in the wellness space, and we organize corporate programs as well as retreats, individual retreats. Of course, we are doing all this virtually now, and it's going to continue that way, it seems like, for a few months more. And if you would like to be part of our community, Ritambara community, the details of where you can connect with us are posted on the chat. Alternately, please post your contact details, your cell number, your email ID, so we can add you to our groups. And you can do that on the chat on the right-hand side, and we will take the information down. And these groups, please note, are admin only posting, so you will get information only on the programs. It's not an interactive sort of group, so you will only get the relevant information. So today we have for you Acharya Raghu Ganpati ji, who will be talking to us on managing stress. So this is part 1 of the program, and we'll be doing the second part on 31st of this month. And as usual, we will post the information on our groups. A little bit about Ganpati ji. Acharya Ganpati ji is a scholar, practitioner, and teacher of the Advaita, the non-dual Vedanta philosophy, the spiritual knowledge expounded in the Upanishads and the Bhagavad Gita. He has formally learnt Veda mantras from Sringeri Shankara Mutt. Acharya Ganpati ji has undergone intensive learnings on Vedanta and advanced Sanskrit from Arsha Vidya Gokulam, Coimbatore. The study included the Sanskrit commentaries of Adi Shankaracharya on the Vedantic texts and Bhagavad Gita. Along with these studies, he's learned Sanskrit language with Paniyan grammar. So the talk will be such, we have 45 minutes of talk, and after that, it'll be followed by 15 minutes of question and answer. Just a few protocols before we start the program. Please mute yourselves. We will also be muting you through the talk. And feel free to post your questions on the chat function, and Acharya ji will go through them one by one. If you'd like to ask your question, then please hold on. After we finish the chat questions, then Acharya ji will invite you to unmute yourself and ask him the question yourself. So thank you so much for being here, Acharya ji, Ganpati ji, thank you so much. And we look forward to your talk today, the first of a series of 2. So over to you.
Om Sadashiva Samarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Parampara. Om. Namaste to all of you. First, I would like to express my thanks to Ritambara team for giving me one more opportunity to talk to all of you. And today, the topic which I have chosen, as you all know, is managing stress. I felt that it's a little topical because of the lockdown. All of us are in one way or the other undergoing some stress. So from a Vedantic point of view, how our ancient scriptures look at stress and what is their prescription for stress management is what we will look at today. And basically, when we talk of stress, we talk of emotional stress, because physical stress also is a kind of stress. But there are different ways to manage the physical stress. We are not going to touch upon the physical stress. Having said that, emotional stress actually is to a large extent responsible for a lot of physical stresses also. In fact, a lot of ailments, a lot of diseases and all, their cause is found in emotional stress. So that is why tackling emotional stress becomes very, very important for us. Now, if we analyze the causes of stress, of course, there may be many causes, but I have actually selected 4 significant causes of stress. The very first cause of stress is our interaction, day-to-day interaction with the world, right? And when we are awake, we interact with the world, and that interaction itself has got a very big potential to cause stress in us. That's why when we sleep, there is no stress. Sleep does not cause any stress because in sleep, we are not interacting with anybody. Even same is the case with coma. If you are in coma, we won't interact with anybody. Even in dreams, there is certain interaction, certain kind of interaction, but that interaction is with, let's say, the objects or people or situations, which is our own creation, which is our own projection. So even though that interaction may momentarily cause some stress in us when we are dreaming, I mean, you would have found a lot of people sweating and all that during dream, right? But when we wake up, we realize that it was all a dream and that stress, whatever was there, just vanishes. Therefore, where we arrive at is that it is the interaction with the world in the waking state is one of the most potential causes for stress in us. So this is the first point that we need to understand. And the second source for stress is procrastination. You understand, procrastination means trying to defer what you need to do without any valid reason. You are just lazy, you just want to postpone it. And this is a very common problem with a lot of people, I can tell you. But we must understand procrastination is different from postponing. If you postpone something for some reason, then that does not cause any stress because that's a deliberate act. For example, you are in an emotionally charged state. Like, for example, you are angry for some reason. And at that point in time, you need to take some crucial decision. But you decide that since I am not emotionally in control, I will postpone taking this decision till I regain my emotional balance. That is perfectly okay, because there you are taking a conscious decision to postpone, to defer a particular action on your part. So that does not cause you any stress. Whereas this procrastination, I will do it later, I will do it tomorrow. What you can do today, you decide you do it tomorrow or later on. And what happens is whatever you need to do keeps on piling up. I mean, we have seen this, in government offices and all, lot of files on the table. These are all the reason. One of the reasons is this procrastination. They don't want to, they feel very lazy to attend to all those things. So this procrastination causes stress. And that's another significant reason where we have to pay attention to and manage that kind of stress. And that's why in Hindi, there is a saying, Kal kare so aaj kare so ab. That actually, that saying or that advice is meant for all these kind of procrastinating people rather. So this is the second cause, where the work piles up and it becomes so overwhelming, and you see Sometimes we have experienced it even with reference to laundry at home, isn't it? You keep on saying, okay, I will wash this tomorrow, I'll wash this tomorrow, and laundry piles up, and suddenly one day you find that it's not just 2, 3, 4 loads of washing machine is required to clear all the laundry. So this is the second source of stress for us. And the third source is certain helpless situations which we are faced with. Then we have no choice in those situations. Like for example, the current situation with all this lockdown and this spreading of this virus and all that, it's a helpless situation. I mean, nobody seems to be having the right answer as to how we should deal with that. And we are also part and parcel of the situation. But this problem is compounded by the fact that today, unlike earlier times, we are subjected to so much of information overload with WhatsApp and internet and Facebook. There's so much of information overload, and then we come across so many different issues. There could be issues of corruption, issues of violence, and all these things take a toll on our emotions. And the problem is we can't do anything about it. I mean, if there's if the politician is corrupt and we don't like it, what can you do to change the politician? Practically, you can't do anything. So what we try to do, we try to gossip or chit chat with our neighbors or friends, and that actually is a process which increases the frustration and the stress in you because you are unable to digest what is happening in the country. So, but these are unavoidable. These are what helpless situations, choiceless situations. But they also contribute to a great deal to the stress that we undergo. And the fourth and the most common cause which I have found of stress is arguments. People have different perspectives about a fact. There's no doubt about it. I mean, what I think about something, you may have a totally different perspective. But what happens is these perspectives, different perspectives become the cause for an argument. And these perceptions are all what? They are very subjective perceptions. And the problem is the person who is having a perception, this subjective perception, does not realize or understand that his perception is subjective. And everybody is in the same boat. With the result, we feel that our perception is very objective and the other person's perception is wrong. So we enter into an argument. And this argument also has got the potential to cause a lot of stress. In fact, sometimes when we have a very big argument with somebody at night, you will find that you are not able to sleep. The whole argument and everything keeps on, replaying in your mind and causing so much stress that you are not able to have, go to sleep rather. So these four causes which I have broadly picked up, there are other causes also, but given the constraints of time and all that, so these are the main four causes that we will see. I picked up, and then we will see what we can do to manage these causes. And what is it that we can do to avoid or relieve this stress in each of these cases is what we will see. But as I said, today I will only tackle the very first cause which I talked about, which is stress caused by interaction with the world, by our relating to the world. This is what I will deal with. And as Beenaji just announced, we will continue with this on the 31st of July with the second part, where I will deal with the other three causes. What is it that we can do in order to manage those kind of stresses? Because again, I feel that this one, the first one, interaction with the world, is a very large contributor to the stress. In fact, even the cause which I mentioned as argument is also part of this this interaction with the world. So interaction with the world, we said, causes stress. But is it a complete statement? Does all interaction with the world cause stress in us? The answer is no. All interactions do not cause stress. There are a number of interactions we have which are very pleasant, and in fact some of stress relieving interactions we have with the world, and they are all not at all stressful. That means that when I relate with the world, if I can strike an harmony with what I am relating to, it does not cause any stress. What causes stress is when I am not able to strike that harmony and there is a disharmonious relationship develops. That is what causes stress. So if I can strike harmony with what I encounter, there is no emotional stress. For example, if one does what one likes to do, then when he does that, there can be no stress for him. So he loves doing that and he does it very happily, he does it. There's no question of any stress. But even there, we have to be a little careful. Even though we may like to do certain things, those things, if they are going to cause a disharmony in the interactions with other people, that may cause a stress. Now, it looks like a very cryptic statement. I'll give you a small example. Suppose a person from an Orthodox family likes to smoke and drink. It's a very simple example, right? He likes to smoke and drink, but whenever he indulges in smoking and drinking, he has a guilt feeling. And that guilt feeling can cause a stress in him. What if my family, other family members come to know, they're all very Orthodox people, what if they come to know that I have these habits? So that could be, even though you like to do what you like to do, there could be circumstances or instances where they themselves could cause some stress. And as I said, this stress, interaction with the world, which is a result of the disharmony, I can save myself from that kind of stress if I have certain space within myself to protect myself from that stress. I'll explain to you a little later what I mean by a certain space within myself. So, for living a stress-free life, there are two options. One is one has the capacity to live in harmony with the world, or if that is not possible, one needs to command enough space within oneself to protect oneself from being an emotional victim to others' disturbing actions and behavior. So these two are the ways in which we can manage this stress. Now I will elaborate. The question is, if you are going to strike a harmony, there is no problem. The question is, how do we create this space within us in order to protect ourselves from this stress-causing situations or objects or people? The first step that you need to take is to keep what is external, external. I repeat, keep what is external, external. The main problem is, of course, it's very difficult to keep everything which is external, external. If I'm able to do that successfully, keep everything external as external, then I can relate to all of them in a very objective manner. Dispassionately, I can relate to them. And then when I do that, there is no cause of any stress or anything. But more often than not, what I do, I internalize those interactions, those relations or relating to the world. In the Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavan Krishna in the 5th chapter while talking about the preparatory steps required for meditation. He talks about in detail about meditation in the 6th chapter. So in the 5th chapter towards the end, he gives one very profound advice for meditation. He says, Sparshan kritva bahir bahya. What does it mean? Sparshan actually refers to all the external objects that you come across. It refers to people, objects, situations, everything is included in this sparshan. In short, whatever your sense organs can, they can take in, or all come under sparsha. All your 5 sense organs, whatever eyes, ears, hearing, seeing, all that, they all come under sparsha. So what Krishna is telling here is, when you sit for meditation, you need to keep everything which is external as external. Remove all that. And that is the first stage where you have to prepare your mind for sitting for meditation. So sparshans are all bahya. Bahya means external. So if you do that, that is the first step you have to do for meditation. Otherwise, what will happen? You will sit for meditation. You will be meditating on all those external things which you have internalized. And the end will be, you in the meditation also, you will be building up more and more stress in you, right? So this is the first step, keeping everything external. All external things, keep them external. But you may say, but external things are already external. Who am I to keep them external, right? But let's understand, this is a profound statement which is there in Bhagavad Gita. So it must mean something. Because this recognizes the fact that even though physically all the objects, people, situations may be external, we have a tendency to internalize many of them. We carry them in our minds for a long time. A situation might have happened and gone, finished, but the memories of that, we keep on carrying it, we keep on mulling over it, and then getting more and more stressed because of that. So this builds up frustration. So that is why, even though the objects may be external to our senses, but those objects could occupy a lot of space in our mind, which could cause stress. Now let me give you one example. We see a range of mountains. We see the blue sky. We see a beautiful flow of a river. We see trees, plants, birds, peacock. All these are external. But tell me, when we experience these things, do they cause any stress in us? They don't cause any stress, because we are able to relate to them in a very harmonious way. And we don't feel that, oh, this range of mountains should be looking different, or this tree should be looking different. We don't want them to be different at all. We accept all these things as they are, right? We have no agenda for the mountains. We have no agenda for the blue sky. We have no agenda for the rivers. We have no agenda for the birds. We have no agenda for the animals. We accept all of them as they are. And because of that acceptance, what happens? There is no stress. The problem is, when that acceptance doesn't come, it causes stress. And that is the disharmony which I was talking about, right? So if you are in harmony with your external world, no stress. The moment you strike a disharmony, stress is caused. So when I become a demanding person, A demanding person means I have certain expectations with respect to other people, other objects or other situations. I undergo stress when those demands of mine are not met or those expectations are not met. This is the primary reason why we have stress. Therefore, what is the solution? The solution is making a cognitive change in ourselves with reference to those people, those objects, those situations, to make oneself a non-demanding person. And that is something which is within our control. And again, if you take the example of people, it is not that with all the people that we come across, we become demanding persons. People whom we do not know, people who are not related to us in any manner, if we come across those people, we have no demand for such general kind of people, isn't it? But for example, when I'm going on the road, I see one small boy, one young boy, 13 years, 15 years, smoking. Now, I don't know that person. I don't know who he is. I will just ignore that. I don't have any expectation that that person should stop smoking or do anything. But whereas, if that person happens to be someone known to me, or for that matter, even my own child, then immediately I become a demanding person, isn't it? I would want them to stop smoking because smoking is injurious to health. And that experience of seeing that person smoking creates a stress in me, and that stress gives rise to me being a demanding person. So the second stage that we need to understand is that it is not that all the people, all the situations, all the objects cause stress, but those people, those objects, and those situations with which I am very intimately connected is what causes the stress. So this is where, in order to convert yourself from a demanding person to a non-demanding person, you need to create a certain space within yourself so that whenever the stress is knocking at your door, you can securely or safely keep yourself away from that stress. So as I said, it's only the significant people in one's life. They could be, father, mother, spouse, children, even colleagues in the office. These are the people. They are significant in your life. They are the sources of the stress that is caused. And people whom you do not know, who are not at all significant in your life, they don't cause any stress at all. And it is these significant people, I am unable to take them, accept them for what they are. That is my problem. I wish they were different, isn't it? For instance, I may wish my parents to be different in terms of their attitude, their behavior, and health, and so on. As a child, one might have, felt neglected, might have had a traumatic childhood. There is pain, there is sadness, there is anger. And these emotions remain hidden in our psyche as long as they are not processed and dealt with. Therefore, I have agendas for everyone who is related to me. This is the first thing. And this is what we see. Every married person wants the spouse to be little different, isn't it? And the job of changing each other remains incomplete throughout their life. Even when they are, past their 60s and 70s, still they will try to change each other. And I have experienced this. I mean, it's not just I'm making up something. You all will understand. All those who are in 60s and 70s will understand what I mean. And that's why we see old people, quarreling over petty things. And if somebody happens to visit them, the only thing that you will hear is the husband complaining about the wife and the wife complaining about the husband, right? Because they can't complain to each other, they will end up in fighting. So somebody else comes from outside, this is what their favorite pastime is. So the problem is we are unable to accept others as they are. And that is where all these stress situations crop up. And the issue is, we don't realize that nobody can change anybody. Changing somebody is an impossible thing. We have to understand this very, very clearly. Lord Krishna went to Duryodhana, tried to change him to avoid the war. What happened? The war took place, right? Even though, of course, Duryodhana was the loser in that. But the point is, if Lord Krishna could not change Duryodhana, what to talk of us? We are trying to change others to suit what our expectations are. So, if you want to be stress-free, the first lesson is learn to accept everyone as they are. This is the first step. Similarly, we have also got agenda for the politicians, the economists and all that. And these days, we keep on, because we have nothing else to do, we keep on discussing so many policy issues which is being taken at the government level and the economy level and all that, as if our views are all going to be taken into account and major changes are going to be made. It's again a fallacy. I mean, nobody is bothered about what you are thinking. There are enough qualified people sitting in the top echelons of government to take those decisions. So why are you wasting your time in thinking about these current politicians or these economic situations, unemployment problem and all? What are you going to do to solve any of them? Nothing. So why think about them? Why internalize those problems and then become a victim to the stress, which is caused by all these things? Because I tell you, these things are all, if we look at it in a day, so many things, we deliberately put on all this frustration on ourselves and then we say we are stressed. Now, the question is, if relating to the world inevitably gives you stress, we have no solution, because we cannot stop relating to the world. We cannot say, no, I'm going to lock myself in a room and then be stress-free. We can't do that. We have to relate. We may be able to probably reduce some relationships, but that itself may cause some stress. That's a different thing altogether. So therefore, whenever you are relating, if you create a certain space within yourself, a certain buffer within yourself, then you can be stress-free. You can avoid, to a large extent, being stressed or being emotionally stressed. And for doing that, for creating that space, role-playing becomes very, very important. And it is very critical to understand and realize that I am different from all the roles that I play. Because one is called upon to play different roles in a day, right? One is a father to a child. One is a husband to a spouse or wife, either way. One is a child to a father. So these are all different roles. In fact, there are roles which undergo a change. The role of a father to a 5-year-old son is different from the role of a father who is the father of a teenager. Then it changes when the boy starts going to college, the role and the script changes. When the boy gets married, again there is a change in the script. And in fact, when the boy has got a child, again there is a change in the script. So even though your role as father has remained the same throughout, there has been a different scripts that you have to adopt for different stages in life. These are all things we must realize. We cannot be dealing with a child, with your son who already has a child, as if you were dealing with him when he was 5 years old, isn't it? Can't be done. So we have to understand all these things, and for understanding and making it practical, this role play becomes understanding role play becomes very important. And for understanding this, Dayanand Swami gives a very beautiful example. And that is the example of an actor. Let us say an actor A is there, and he is going to play the role of a beggar in a drama, in a stage. Now, let us say actor A is going to play the role of beggar B, right? And he plays that role so well that even a real life beggar cannot beg so well like the actor does on the stage, because he has studied the all the nuances of begging, how the beggars behave and all that, and he has actually trained himself. He has done a lot of rehearsals, and then he actually performs that role of a beggar on the stage. And he has the background music and all the costumes and props for him to be very effective beggar on the stage. But if you look at it, even though the actor is playing the role of a beggar, the emotions as a beggar that he undergoes, he is not affected by that as a person. He is able to create a space between himself as an actor and his role as a beggar, and does not allow that all the emotional stress or anything that the beggar undergoes, all the emotional issues, does not allow that to affect him as an actor. This is the space which I am talking about. And this is very, very important. So if we understand, and the same actor may be doing different roles. I mean, in this drama, he is a beggar. In some other drama, he may be a prince. In some, he may be a film actor also. In some film, he may be something else. I mean, maybe a lawyer. But whatever role he plays those roles with all the emotions required for that role perfectly. But he never ever allows those emotions to become internalized within himself to cause a stress in him. So this is an example which we need to carry in our mind whenever we are interacting with the world. So we play different roles. We must understand, we must have a script for all those roles, and we must try to create that script in such a way that there is a harmony whenever we are interacting with any person or any situation. That means what? You need to first of all have a self-identity. A is B, but B is not A. That we have to understand. I am a father, but father is not I. I am only playing the role of a father or a mother or whatever it is, and I will not allow whatever happens in that role to affect me internally. And this is the space which I talked about. This space is what we need to create, right? So what we need to understand, this self-identity, what it means is, first of all, I am a basic, simple, relaxed person. This is the first thing we have to understand. That whatever role that I am playing, whatever stresses that I am undergoing while playing the role, and mind you, in all the roles there will be stresses. There will be it will be very tiresome and to be very stressful. Even on the stage, when the actor is actually acting, there are stressful situations for him, but he does not allow those stressful situations to affect him as an individual, as a person, because he has that space, and that space is a permanent space. That space doesn't change. You have to create that space. So there is a basic person in you, a simple conscious person, a relaxed person. And to see this fact, it does not take any time. It only takes attention. It only takes insight. And this is what you are. You must understand that you are a basic simple person, and nothing can affect you as long as you are able to create that space. And this basic person is a non-demanding person. I have no demand for anybody. If I am a demanding person, it is the role of a father which was demanding, nothing to do with me. When I play that role, I will be a demanding person. But that demanding person doesn't affect me. That is the space, and that is what Vedanta talks about self-identity. You must understand that this is the Vedantic way of looking at one's own life, and learn to be stress-free. So the person is not the role, and the role is the person. But what happens normally is we confuse these two things. Both the role and person, we roll that into one. And that is why all the challenges which are there in the on the role, we internalize those challenges and then we become stressful. So this is what is happening, the dynamics of how stress is created in our mind. And there is a corollary to that. And the corollary is that in doing this, you must give freedom to others for what they are. That's very, very important. You can avoid stress by keeping all the people outside and also granting them the freedom to do what they are. Because if they want to change, maximum you can do is you can help them to change. But you cannot change them unless they themselves want to change. So what you can do, you can give freedom to them to be what they are and accept them as they are. So let the father be a father in your kindness and love. Grant the person to be the freedom to be what he is. Because every person has got a background. And a family background, a social background, a cultural background, all these things, affect, or they all go to make up what a person is, what his behavior is. So when we understand that a particular type of behavior a person is, indulging in, there is a background why he is doing all that. All that he requires is my sympathy. He is actually a person who is unable to control, his own emotions and his own behavior. So all that he requires is my sympathy, my understanding, and let him give him the freedom to be what he is. So this is how we must approach these kind of situations. But by understanding this does not mean that you have to allow yourself to be trampled upon by others. That's not what is this meant. You draw a line between yourself and others, and for that matter, every person that you deal with, and then determine what your threshold of tolerance is, and based on that, draw that line. Whatever it is in terms of giving your time or giving any help, in terms of everything, you have a threshold, and that threshold you draw a line and you operate within that line. In fact, you draw a Lakshman Rekha. Neither you cross that line nor you allow the other people to cross that line. That line represents that space which I talked about, right? And if there are situations, you can always tell a person very politely that you cannot handle whatever he wants you to handle the way he expects because of certain reasons. And you should do that without invoking any defense mechanism in the other person. It requires practice. So you have to learn to keep away from stress. Otherwise, stress will keep on knocking at your door and trying to enter through all the gaps which is there in your emotional framework. So you have to lead an alert life. You have to grant freedom to everyone who is intimately related to you. The more freedom you give to the other, you will realize that you become freer in your relationship. You find enough space within yourself to have compassion for others. There is love. And when these are there, you will find that there is no room for stress at all. And relating to the people actually becomes enjoyable. Right? Now, $1 million question. Is that all so simple? It's a thing. I'm sure that this question must be there in a lot of people's minds. The answer is an emphatic no. This is not very simple. Vedanta is not simple. Spirituality is not simple. It takes a lot of effort to change one's perspective. But if there is a resolve to pursue this line of action, the sadhana which can help you is Vedantic meditation. There is a Vedantic meditation which, as I said, what Bhagavan Krishna talks about in the 6th chapter of Gita, you can start with guided meditation, and then once you are comfortable with guided meditation, you can do meditation on your own, and this requires a lot of time, a lot of, I would say, concentration of your mind. You have to unlearn a lot of things and learn a lot of new things. You have to get rid of your past orientation and get into a new identity. That's what it takes. And like any actor for that matter, I mean, for doing even a 10 minutes, 15 minutes role, how many rehearsals that they undergo? They want to become perfect. So the director, if he happens to be a very taskmaster, then he will make sure that the actor does repeat the same lines 100 times in a day. So that kind of exercise, that kind of practice, that kind of sadhana is required if you really want to do that. There are our scriptures show you all the way, all the prescriptions are there, all the do's and don'ts are there. All that we have to do is understand them and follow them. And as Krishna says in the 6th chapter, Abhyasena tu kaunteya vairagyena cha grihyate. If it requires a very dispassionate approach and relentless practice in order to create that space and live in harmony with this entire world. And that is the way we can, Vedantic way I would say, we can keep ourselves away from stress. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadhaya Purnameva Vasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Thank you all for patiently listening to me for, I hope I have not crossed the time limit.
Thank you so much, Ganpati ji. It was very, very very clearly explained and very nice from a Vedantic perspective. A lot of things that, we just we didn't, and I didn't realize personally, but I think a lot of us wouldn't, that we are very harmonious with nature.
Yes.
Because we really don't have any expectation and we love it for what it is. We love the beauty, we love all of that. But with people close to us, whom we really love so much, we have all kinds of expectations, which is really what we should be very careful about that, and we should be aware of that. So that was a very nice one. Your example of the actor and the role also was very...
Not my example, my Guruji's example.
Guruji's example, yes. Swami Dayanandji's, yes, absolutely. Very nice.
It's so a beautiful example.
How to keep that space between us. Thank you so much.